Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, 7 unannounced games leaked on Amazon France. But do they all center around a mime playing accordion at Toulouse-Lautrec's birthday party at the Moulin Rouge? It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We have got a good show for you today. We are going to be talking about the news from the week, including the Pokemon Company's ridiculous profits. And then on Thursday, we're going to be talking about Nintendo's E3 presentation. Huh? But in the meantime, Mark, how you doing?
How am I doing? What a question at a time like this. I guess
Yes.
the easiest way to answer it is the way I always answer it, and I'll just say, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking, Patrick.
Let's address this like a little bit off the top here. Obviously, the whole country is going through something real right now. Mark and I both live in Los Angeles, where there have been a lot of protests and a lot of horrible police responses to such protests. And so, we wanted to be able to, we want to do this show. We want to provide an escape and talk about some video game stuff, even as the world is in a bad place and the president is talking about deploying the army to American cities, which is a nightmare. But so forgive us if we get dragged down by that, or if we start talking about it. We believe Black Lives Matter. We stand with protesters, and just gonna try to get on and have a fun show for you tonight. Here's something that's not super fun. My copy of Sonic Forces. Would you like to borrow it? Not fun. It's not a fun game. I tried playing it again recently. It's not very good. All you got to do to get on the list to borrow my copy of this game is email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com and give us a mailing address where we can send this thing to you. You play it for as long as you want. You get a return mail envelope. I address the envelope. I put postage on the envelope, and then you send it back to me, and it's costs you nothing.
This is a really great point, Patrick. We have talked in the past about how you send the return postage, but we've never mentioned, I don't think, that you address the envelope. It is.
Oh yeah.
That's just another selling point to an already perfect program.
Yeah, it is a zero effort on your part. All you got to do is email us. Like, that is literally, and then drop it back in the mail later. Like, that is it.
There were whispers last week that maybe the program was gearing up to get out of hiatus. Probably not this week, but is that still the plan?
That is still, yes, it is still my plan to take us off of hiatus. Maybe not at the moment. Currently, I'm under a curfew, so again, when/if things get back to normal, the program will continue. Please borrow my copy of Sonic Forces. The price for it on the eShop has gone back up to $20. So again, not that I was ever telling anyone what to do with their money, but now I thoroughly counter recommend spending the full $20 to play the game when you can just borrow it from me. Also, we wanted to address what we are going to be doing on Thursdays this month. I said that we we're going to be talking about Nintendo's E3 presentation, but Nintendo's not having an E3 presentation because there is no E3 this year. So, Mark, what are we doing?
Well, we still want to celebrate E3, and so we're going to be looking at Nintendo E3 presentations from years in the past all month long. This coming Thursday, we're going to be looking at Nintendo's 2004 E3 presentation, which is the Nintendo DS reveal. And then we'll be looking at 2006, 2010, and 2011. We encourage you to watch along with us, or I guess really watch before we talk about it on
No, try to figure it
Thursdays.
out. Try to figure out when we're watching it. But again, we will throw up a little reminder during the Tuesday episodes about which E3 presentation we're going to be talking about later in the week. So you've got a couple days then to just sort of catch up and watch with us. So or talk about it with us. I don't even know. You could email us. In fact, since we are going to be doing the 2004 the Nintendo DS reveal. E3 presentation, you can email us any reactions at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, or you can tweet at us at NinCart Society, whatever sort of reactions you have to it. I haven't seen a lot of these in a long time, so I'm very interested to revisit them and just see what I feel about them. Can I be excited for a 16-year-old E3 presentation? Maybe I can, Mark.
So I'm pretty sure that the 2004 one is Reggie's first E3, and it is really something to cherish. I'm really excited to do this because, like you, I have not watched these full presentations, in years. Probably since they originally were available on Spike TV or something. So I'm very excited. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
All right, great. Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. I'd like to kick this off with the fact that I have, true to my word, picked up Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch, and I will honor it with its full name, just as I have been honoring Dragon Quest XI S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch, even though I am not to a place where I don't hate Xenoblade Chronicles.
We had a short text conversation where you basically told me that you hated the game, and I was like, well, is it the gameplay or the characters or just something intangible? And you were like, no, I think it's all of it.
Yeah. Here is the text. This is the exchange. I said, it might be too early for me to say this, but I think I hate Xenoblade. This is at 3:26 on Friday. Game had been out for less than 24 hours. And you say, oh no, gameplay, story, or both? To which I respond, both? Every part of it?
Now, you did not love Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but you also gave that a shot. So I'm curious on this, how it compares to Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Well, so do you remember as we were leading up to the release of this game, you said something along the lines of, no matter how much they have remastered the game, it's I wonder if they're going to be able to overcome the fact that it is a Wii game, right? If it can ever actually overcome the design that's built into the fact that it is a game running on, 2 generations old hardware. And I mean, it is exactly that. It feels like an old game. It looks a lot better than it used to, but it feels old, and it's got all of the sort of clunkiness that I didn't like about Xenoblade Chronicles 2, where I never really feel like I'm in control of the characters. And part of that is just the battle system is a lot of you just move your character close to the enemies, and they sort of auto attack, and then you pick their special attacks that are on separate little cooldown meters. But your 2 party members are just sort of hacking away. So I feel like I don't have any control over what they're doing. But then on top of that, it feels really hard. I even in the first real mission, am finding that the enemies kill me, and I'm okay, well, am I doing something wrong? And then sort of looking up strategies of how to approach these battles, and I think I'm doing it all right. But then again, I'm not always able to tell, because okay, so your character Shulk has two special moves that are more powerful when they are done to the back of the enemy, one to the back of the enemy and the other to the side of the enemy. And it's not always easy for me to tell where the front of an enemy is, right? Because like it's moving around, the camera's moving around, your two party members are moving around, and like everything looks kind of boxy and weird, and like there's a little exclamation point that pops up when the move is going to be effective, but I don't know if I'm doing that at the right time or like a split second after, so
Yeah.
like and the whole thing has a very like kind of floaty, you know how in Zelda when you hit someone with a sword it feels good, it feels like you're hitting something with a sword, you see like a knockback on that side and there's a sound effect, and it all like you can very easily connect your input to what is happening on screen and like the effect that it has on something else. And I feel like every part of that chain is disconnected for me in Xenoblade, which just makes it super difficult to get into the gameplay.
Yeah, that does not sound fun. I'm curious. So one of the things that they added for the definitive release is like a uh super easy mode, or like basically where you're just playing for the story.
Casual mode.
And that's like one of the things, like when I played Fire Emblem Three Houses, I played it on easy and on, you couldn't die, like all that kind of stuff. And I enjoyed it that way, but I also found like the characters and the story of Fire Emblem Three Houses like interesting enough to make it worth going through the battles and basically just like auto playing a lot of them in the beginning. I'm curious if like, do you think that you would enjoy Xenoblade Chronicles in that way? Like if you were not emphasizing the combat, or do you think like the story and the world just isn't enough to engage you either?
It's a good question, and you're sounding an awful lot like the game right now, which frequently prompted me to turn the difficulty down to casual mode. It could tell I was struggling. So I don't know. I like, at least I think I do. I think I like RPG battle systems, and I like to get into them and understand them. That I felt most rewarded by Dragon Quest when I like actually understood what I was doing with the combat mechanics. And then once I got there, then I felt comfortable putting the whole game on auto, and letting like the battles mostly play themselves out until I decided I wanted to intervene. So like I feel like that would be giving up a big part of what I like about those kinds of games. And if all I'm left with is then like, like a crazy anime about people that live on giant the corpses of giant battling monsters, like can't I just go watch an anime, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
And it's so it's just not really my storytelling aesthetic to begin with. I again, to use the two examples we just brought up of Fire Emblem and Dragon Quest, those have some of the same aesthetic or some of the same like storytelling elements that sort of like anime, that the Japanese storytelling that I like, and this is just not it's just I'm just not digging it. Like and I don't know if more time with it would change that. I had the English voice acting on for a little bit and said, nope, I can't do that, and put the Japanese voice acting on, which is better. But the man, the characters do not shut up in this game. During battle, and like when a battle ends, I swear everyone has like 3 sentences of celebratory dialogue and they're all just talking at the exact same time. And yeah, it has been a brutal experience for me so far. And I want to like try it again. I want to like get myself over, first like 4 or 5 hour hump. But like I am finding it difficult.
That's kind of a bummer, only because, like you spent $60 on it. But
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is still worth seeking out from the game, because like I've never played it, but it's still in like heavy in my rotation when I'm like looking for video game music to listen to, is the soundtrack to this game is really really good. and so that was like I was curious if like because the world sounds really cool and like it has a great soundtrack, and so I
Yeah.
wondered if like the aesthetics could carry it. But it sounds like, I mean, it makes sense. It's a video game, and if it's not fun to play, like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and this is yeah, of course, this is me reviewing it from 2 hours into it, right? And I am at some point when if it doesn't grab me, I will just have to concede that it is a game that is not for me. Um, but yeah, I mean, like as far as like your comment about the music, I think the music is good. It never quite feels appropriate.
Mm.
It is sometimes like too bombastic and energetic as I'm just like running across the field, sort of like evoking feelings that I don't think are appropriate for like a more mundane task that I'm undertaking. But I will. I'm gonna give it another shot. I endeavor not to just be a negative Gus about it. But I can only be pushed so far, Mark.
Well, here's what I mean. Like, what's the point? I guess I feel like what's the point of
Yeah.
eating your vegetables with video games? You know what I mean? If it's like, if you don't like it and it's not to your taste, like I wouldn't, why waste time on it?
Well, because I had played a little bit of Dragon Quest 11 on the PlayStation 4 when it came out, um, and didn't really care for what I experienced. And like there are a lot of the improvements in Dragon Quest 11S that makes it a better game, but I don't know that it makes it so much of a better game that like I wouldn't have just enjoyed the original had I just stuck with it and like played more of it. I think it definitely has a period at the beginning which is not bad but not nearly as fun or engrossing as the latter 65-70 hours of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a really good point. And I feel like with RPGs especially, it
Yes.
takes time to kind of like reveal itself, and it takes time to get to the point in the game where you can appreciate the parts that you want to put time into and kind of
Yes.
ignore the systems and aspects of it that like don't interest you as much.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't tell you the number of games, especially RPGs, that I've played where I've been playing for like 20 hours, and I'm like, oh, I can do this? That's awesome, like, and it's something that's been there and available to me from the jump, and I just haven't like thought about the game in that way. So yeah, all of which is to say, I would like to, in fact, eat my vegetables on this thing, and maybe it reveals just more vegetables, but maybe there's a chocolate cake in there.
And sometimes vegetables are good.
This is also true.
So I've been still making my way through Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe. I have gotten, I beat the core game. I got all of like the gold coins, in all the levels, and so now I'm on like the Star Road, and I'm halfway through those levels, I think, or I guess a little over halfway. I have 3 levels left. Sometimes they are these levels are very devious in the sense that like in earlier Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe levels, sometimes the gold coins would be hidden, and so you would go through a level and you'd be like, yeah, I guess I have to like go back and explore and find that gold coin. In the star levels, I don't know, have you Patrick, did you, when you played the game, like have you done the star levels?
I think I've done some of them, but honestly, I don't remember.
Yeah. So like they, in the star levels, they are like, here's all the gold coins. Like they're very like easy to locate, but the difficulty is in like getting them. And none of the levels have checkpoints, and so it's all just like so much repetition and being like, oh, I'm so close, or like I've gotten all 3 and then I die at this tricky part at the very end. But actually, okay, so when I was playing the game, I found the save mechanic annoying, where you could only, in your first playthrough of the game, you can only save at like the like castles in the middle, like the dungeons, and then the airships at the end. Like after you defeat those, then you're able to save, or if you find like secret exits. And so like when I was first playing, I'm like, wow, this is really annoying. But now when I'm in Star Road and I'm able to save whenever I want, it feels like a little bit less special, because you're able to like, not like, you're just able to cheese stuff a little easier. It's like, oh man, instead of having to kind of be like, oh, well, I lost that acorn. Am I going to, or like that squirrel suit, am I going to like start back from the last time I saved, or I'm just going to figure out another way to get this gold coin? Now you're like, oh, great. I'll just go back to the main menu, reload this game, and use this one, like squirrel suit over and over and over until I finally like get it.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is that that's so much. It's the same save system as Super Mario World, right? And I remember, when I was a kid playing that game and like having that one little secret area off the ghost house in Donut Plains where you can get like either two feathers or two fire flowers and a Yoshi, and it's just like it's the same basic idea where you're just like, oh yeah, just go over there and like get powered up and then keep going, where it's like, well, why not just let me do that wherever,
Right. But I have to admit, my esteem for this game has like really risen significantly. While I was playing it, I was like, I mean, probably objectively, this is a better platformer than a lot of, the Mario games that came before. That I obviously have so much like emotion tied up in Super Mario Brothers 3 and Super Mario World, but like as actual like level design and platforming, like it's really good. This is a really good single player Mario game. Like I'm glad that I've taken this time to go back and appreciate it, or play it a little bit slower, because I was surprised at what I found.
Yeah, and that is also a good thing to do with that game, because playing it multiplayer is so like immediately and obviously fun and rewarding that like it can maybe take a second to realize that there is a deep single player experience there too.
Except Nabbit, who I hate. I hate Nabbit. I was going through and I did a Nabbit in every world because you get like a star on your save file for doing it that way. But man, do I hate that character.
Yeah, Nabbit's not fun, and controlling him doesn't make him any better. It's so weird that Nintendo like just introduced that character, right? Like he's so strange.
Yeah.
What is Nabbit? I also just wanted to add that I played a little bit of Mario Kart 7 this weekend. Sarah has been playing a lot of Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is great, but it means that I don't have as much unfettered access to our Nintendo Switch, which means that the 3DS has been getting a little bit of a workout lately. So yeah, playing Mario Kart 7 and really just sort of like drilling down on the tracks that are not in Mario Kart 8, and sort of just being reminded how much that game leans into having really long tracks, and how there's, I think in every circuit there's one of those like one-way courses where like you don't do 3 laps, where it's a single lap or like a single start point to a single end point, and sort of missing that in Mario Kart 8. That like I think there are a lot of lessons that the next Mario Kart game could learn from 7, in just being like a little bit more adventurous, or like a little bit more willing to take the racers on a journey from start to finish, than Mario Kart 8 does.
That's interesting. I haven't played Mario Kart 7. I feel like its reputation nowadays is not very good. So it's interesting for me to hear you say like, oh yeah, there's a lot of lessons that 9 could take from 7. That actually makes me more interested in checking it out.
I mean, I'm sort of always been of the opinion that, with the exception of Super Circuit, is that the GBA one?
I think so.
That with the exception of that one, every new Mario Kart game is the best one until the next new one comes out. I thought DS was great. I thought Wii was great. I think 7 is great as well. Yeah, and it's I think the only reason to not look super kindly on 7 is that 8 just outdoes it in so many ways. And it is really just in this one specific dimension that I think 7 has something over 8.
Mm-hmm.
But 8 does it too. Like there's the Mount Wario, there's whichever one of the F-Zero tracks that's the one-way track, either Big Blue or the other one, Mute City. So yeah, like it's not as though it's absent from 8, but I think 7 kind of leans into it a little bit more. Okay, so that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
So we got 2 games coming out on Friday that I want to talk about on June 5th. So first, Clubhouse Games, 51 Worldwide Classics. The Nintendo first-party game that I didn't realize was part of a franchise until a friend of the show, June, texted me, and there was like a DS game that was also called Clubhouse Games.
Yeah, and I mean, Clubhouse Games looks like it is also in some of the games taking a little bit of its cues from Wii Play, right? Like there's the sort of like tanks game, and a few other things that like feel as though, you know, this is just sort of their repository for board games and mini games.
Yeah, like bowling is a part of it, and from what I've read, like it's not exactly like Wii Bowling. Like it doesn't feel as good as Wii Bowling, which is crazy to say because I don't feel like Wii Bowling felt all that good. But yeah, I completely agree, and it's also only $40, which I didn't realize.
So this was also news to me too, and it was I think at $40 it actually begins to make sense as a Nintendo first party game. Just Clubhouse Games, 51 Worldwide Classics, and the fact that there aren't like Nintendo characters involved in it, and it's not like cute or anything. Like the aesthetic of this game is very plain, right? It seems very simple, almost cheap in some ways.
It feels like something that I agree with you. It does not feel like a Nintendo first party title. Like, and that's a little, for whatever reason, hard for me to wrap my brain around. It seems like something that like a perfectly fine, you know, like third party would publish along with like Monopoly or Carnival Games.
Yeah, so Ubisoft is what you're saying.
Right, yeah, I guess. A perfectly fine third party. Also coming out on Friday is the sorry, one thing that I want to talk about Clubhouse Games is that it has a online for a lot of the games as well, which could be fun. And so like I didn't think I was going to pick this up, but I think actually I might. The other game that's coming out on Friday that I have already preloaded is The Outer Worlds. This is the RPG from Obsidian that you know, is kind of another take on that Fallout type of RPG.
Yeah, it came out on other platforms in like October of last year, I believe. I remember talking about it with Emily when she was on our show, and we were talking about spooky levels.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Must have been in October.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. I was one of those people that came to Fallout with Fallout 3, and you know, like I bought New Vegas. I didn't put a ton of time into New Vegas because I was so burned. I had put so many hours into Fallout 3 that I started New Vegas and was like, I cannot do this again. But I'm excited. This is by a lot of the people who, you know, made New Vegas. It's kind of a smaller scope than like a Bethesda Fallout game, but it's supposed to be the quests are supposed to be really good. The writing is supposed to be really good, and that's what I'm excited for. I'm excited for something where like you know, like you don't have to, you can get through scenarios without having to use combat at all. And I am excited to dive into this. So.
All right, cool. I'm excited to hear more about it. I don't expect to hear it. I don't want to sound like I'm giving you homework. All right, Mark, let's close out this segment. And now it's time for a regular segment on this show. It's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, we're on a little bit of a 433 theme right now. In that last week we talked about our favorite episodes of the Simpsons. Today we're going to be talking about a specific episode of The Simpsons, The Principal and the Pauper.
Yeah, you had mentioned it in our discussion last week about The Simpsons, and I just watched it like a night or two ago during my rewatch of The Simpsons, and I had only seen it like, I don't know, the last time I saw it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago when Simpsons World first became available on the FX app. But this is kind of like a sorry, go ahead.
Just a little bit of context as to what episode this is. This is season 9, episode 2. It is the episode where Principal Skinner is revealed to be a fraud, that his real name is Armin Tamzarian, and he stole Prince Seymour Skinner's identity during the Vietnam War or Korean War. It doesn't matter. Probably Vietnam. And came back and lived his life. And then the real Skinner comes back and tries to reclaim his identity.
And it's so funny. So this episode kind of has a negative reputation.
Yes.
But sorry, go ahead.
Just sorry. I always will have too much information about a Simpsons episode. But in the commentary track, the writer Ken Keeler starts discussion of the episode by joking and saying like, okay, well, I thought we would just get into where we were in our minds and we decided that we wanted to ruin the show forever. And like that is a reputation that the episode has, in that it is A, bad, and B, like ruins the reality or like wrecks something fundamental about the series.
Yeah, which is we were just talking about like in my rewatch, I think like the very next episode is actually where I would say that decline begins. Like, I think this is a perfectly like fine, funny episode. I think it's super funny that this is basically like Don Draper, and everybody loves Mad Men, but when
everyone loves Don Draper, Dick Whitman. Come on. Simpsons way ahead of the curve on this one. And also, I mean, this is that's like this idea is taken from like a classic war story too, right? I don't actually know what that movie or book or whatever it is called, but like it's not coming from nothing.
And like the
I
Seymour.
also like this episode.
What, you also like this episode?
Yeah.
I feel like the Seymour Skinner, like the real Seymour Skinner, when he comes back, they do a really good job of like even though he's just a normal person who like would not put up with Mrs. Skinner's, all the nonsense that she puts Armin through, like his totally normal reactions to her read as so like mean.
Yeah, it's I love when he's like, I'm going to a bar, Mom, and she goes, I don't know what that is. It's one of those episodes that is a lot like Homer's Enemy, in that like all it really does is put like a super normal person in the Simpsons orbit, and I do think that people respond to that in either negative or positive ways. The weird thing is like Homer's Enemy, and that's the Frank Grimes episode, has such a positive reputation but it's the same gimmick, right? It's like a real person in this cartoon character's world. But people like that Frank Grimes episode for some reason.
I feel like that episode has a reputation for being really mean, but it makes sense in the world of The Simpsons. I think one of the things that rubs people the wrong way about this episode is the way that it ends, which is like, because it's basically saying like, how do we get out of this situation? And what they end up doing is just like, putting the real Seymour Skinner on a train, tying him to a rail car in like a wooden chair. Well, I guess we'll never know.
I guess we'll never know. Sorry, I do just have one more thing to say about it. That it's 99% of all Simpsons episodes end with nothing changing and everything being the same the next week, exactly the same the next week. So like they just have to magic themselves to that anyway, right?
Well,
like,
they actually, in a weird way, they're just like, the judge legally changes his name to Seymour Skinner. The end.
Right.
And you're like,
That's
okay. Like, okay, great. Then it makes sense for people to call him that.
We were accompanied today by Timotheos Petrin and George Jian Fu. All right, Mark, let's get into the news.
So this morning at 6 a.m. Pacific time, so likely by the time you've listened to this, possibly it's already been announced. Did I put enough qualifiers in there? Likely, possibly,
Likely, possibly,
who knows?
probably.
Yeah. I mean, listen, dear listener, you might be one of the precious few who, as soon as it hits midnight Pacific time, you're downloading this episode, you are consuming it. In which case, you will be in the same situation, Patrick and I, where we do not know the news that the Pokemon Company is going to be revealing this morning at 6 a.m. They're going to be revealing new information about the Pokemon Sword and Shield expansion pack. The first part of the DLC was originally slated to come out in June. So, and as far as we know, that hasn't been delayed. So it's likely that we're going to get like a specific date for the Isle of Armor.
Now, Mark, I'm going to make us engage in a tiny bit of speculation about something that has probably already been announced by the time people are listening to this. Do you think they are going to say here, like detail the Isle of Armor and say, and it's available later today?
Interesting. I don't think so. I think they're going to detail it, and then I think it'll be available in like a week or two. I think that they're like going to try to drum up a little more, like business before it drops.
So something is just occurring to me now. June, the month we are currently in, is also supposedly the month where we will find out who this ARMS character is that's going to be in Smash Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So big Smash DLC, and we are assuming then that the character will also come out at roughly the same time. So big Smash DLC, big Pokemon DLC. Do you think Nintendo is even thinking about them as possibly being in competition with each other, or is it possible that one of them drops on Tuesday and the other one drops on Wednesday?
I think, and this is literally based on nothing, but I think that the Smash one will come out around when E3 would have been.
Sure.
Like, my guess is that was where they were shooting for it internally anyways, and that will continue to be true.
Would E3 have been this week or next week?
I think it would have been next week. I feel like it's normally, like last year was like around the 12th. I think it's normally a little closer to the middle of the month.
Okay.
Also, speaking of Pokemon, the Pokemon Company recently had an investor call to recap their fiscal year that ended in February 2020. That period is now being marked as their second best year ever, with profits up 14.8% from the previous year.
Now, you may be asking yourself, wow. Well, you may be saying, wow, first of all, and then you may follow it up by asking yourself, I wonder what their best year ever was. It must have been sometime in the early 2000s or in like the 90s when late 90s when Pokemon was like first getting huge and it was everywhere. Seemingly not the case.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
Looking at the chart, it's like insane the difference between like 2015 or even 2016 and 2017, where 2017 is just like monstrous growth.
Yeah, 2017 is the year that the Pokemon Company had their best year. Mark, do you remember what happened in 2017?
I'm guessing it's Pokemon Go.
It's Pokemon Go. And so a lot of the Pokemon Company's success in the years since 2017, including 2020, is due to Pokemon Go. Obviously, 2019 they had Let's Go, and this last year they had Sword and Shield, the financial years. But like the main drivers for profit in these years has been Go, which is just it's something that I don't think about at all anymore. When I read this, I was like, oh yeah, Pokemon, like I forgot the game existed, but it's making them just a ton of money.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Also last week we got an overhead view of Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios in Japan. New photos gave a view of like the entrance area to the land, including like a big Starman in the ground in front of a pipe that leads into the land itself. It looks very cool. I think if Universal Studios Japan was open right now, that Super Nintendo World would probably be really close to its grand opening. Right now, Universal Studios Japan is closed. I think maybe I read today, I can't remember for sure, that it's going to be opening in July. So maybe Super Nintendo World will be opening fairly soon, but it looks pretty great.
It looks pretty great. I like seeing I mean, if you haven't seen these pictures like on Twitter or whatever, look them up somewhere, because it's cool to see like this overhead view where you can see like other parts of the park, and then this amazing pop of color which is Super Nintendo World. Like it's just so bright. It's got just like all of the primary colors of like the Mushroom Kingdom, and just looks beautiful and fun, and like, man, that feels cool. Man, it just seems great. You enter through a warp pipe, and like it seems as though you're like inside for a long time before you exit what appears to be the front of Peach's castle. Um, and then like there's just stuff everywhere. So like, I can't wait to see impressions, to read some stuff, to see some more photos, and then eventually go to one of these when it comes to Universal in Hollywood.
Yeah, it looks like so much like you said, like just like the colors are so happy. It's really fun. Like you can see the little Yoshi vehicles lined up.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, that just seems like the dream to be able to ride a Yoshi through this like dark ride. You get Bowser's Castle, which is going to be the entrance to Mario Kart. I am super excited for this, and I'm really glad they're building one here in Hollywood too.
Yeah.
Amazon France has posted some product descriptions that possibly portend the release of future Nintendo Switch games. Whether or not these are actually tied to releases, who knows? But like,
Yeah, sometimes these listings appear on various versions of Amazon or anything, because people are making some educated guesses, and they know they'll have to put some placeholders up at some point, and so like that could either be this, or they could have like specific games in mind for all of these.
so, and there are some specifics to it. So, like, there are 4 listings for unannounced Nintendo first party games. And because they're
Yes.
unannounced, it's not Clubhouse Games and it's not Paper Mario. And then they also have listings for a few like third party games from studios like Warner Brothers, Bethesda, Square Enix, Ubisoft, Capcom, and Take-Two.
Which is all of that very interesting. Is there anything in that lineup, and any of those developers or publishers that has you like particularly excited?
Well, I'm trying to think of what's on Bethesda's slate, because Bethesda's been really good about
Yeah.
publishing games like on Switch. Like, what in their upcoming slate that hasn't been or that's been announced for other platforms but not for Switch would there be? And like we saw announcements for Doom Eternal and stuff like that at the same time as other platforms. So it's possible that
Yeah.
the Bethesda title is an unannounced title. Like I'm kind of at a loss for all of these. Like Ubisoft, it wouldn't totally shock me if we're getting a sequel to Rabbids. Capcom, again, it's another one where you're like, it's 99. It's probably likely that it's going to be a port of a game that already came out.
Yeah.
And so like
Somewhere else.
yeah, like it's exciting to see all these publishers, but like Warner Brothers could be a Lego game, Take-Two could be a basketball game, or it could be Grand Theft Auto 5. Like
Right.
the possibilities
Right.
just
And
seem like crazy.
right, and Warner Brothers could be, the new Batman game. So like, or it could be the new Harry Potter game, or it could be like a new Middle Earth game. Like the possibilities in a lot of these places are sort of endless. Do you have any like wishes for Square Enix?
Yeah, that one's weird because that's like another one where I'm like, it So what it feels like it's going to be is something in the vein of like an Octopath Traveler, right? But Bravely Default 2
Yeah.
has already been announced.
Right.
So is it like another game from Tokyo RPG Factory? Is it like
Does
a
Tokyo RPG Factory still
yeah,
exist?
right, yeah. Is it a like Kingdom Hearts collection? Just like
Yeah. Great
yeah,
question. And like, why isn't there a Kingdom Hearts collection like that just has everything but number 3 on it? Or even why not try to put Kingdom Hearts 3 on? Like find a way to dumb these things down. I also, you know, if there's a way to actually put a version of Final Fantasy 15 on the Switch, it seems like that would also be something that would sell well on that system. Um, Capcom, I wonder if Capcom is so interesting, right? Because like the Resident Evil games have, they're in like a new good place with Resident Evil. Um, but like so it could be another like entry in the Resident Evil series. Maybe they're deciding that they can make different versions of remakes that aren't just like the kinds of 2 and 3 that we've seen. But I would also, man, just this last week, Street Fighter V Championship Edition announced that they were releasing their 5th season of DLC characters, another 5 characters, which is going to bring that game's player count to like 50 almost, which is wild. It's so many characters for a Street Fighter game, and it makes me wonder if they are. And that game finally has like a good reputation again, right? Like when it was launched, Street Fighter V was critically derided and really took like the fighting game community embracing it and Capcom updating it continuously for like 5 years for it to be in a good place at all. Like I wonder if that's the kind of thing that they would want to try to bring over to Switch or something else in their fighting oeuvre, because it's been a little while that like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was a long time ago now and disappeared almost immediately. And it's just weird to have such an absence of Capcom fighters, like of new Capcom fighters outside of Street Fighter V. I feel like there's a hole there's a piece missing for Capcom fighters on Switch.
well, I also think that with Capcom, there's, it was only a few years ago that Capcom was putting games like, Phoenix Wright on Ace
Yeah.
Attorney and like those types of games on the 3DS, and that they had those like smaller efforts for that platform. And we've seen them basically in the Switch era completely abandon that. And it makes sense because Capcom, this generation has seen a lot of success on the PlayStation 4
Yeah.
and Xbox, like in countries outside of Japan. And so it makes a lot of sense for them to focus efforts there, but it does make me sad that it seems to be at the expense of these more like quirky titles that used to show up on Nintendo platforms. And I would
Yeah.
love to see that make its way back in some form or another.
That's a good point, and it brings up a franchise that I am not super excited about, but I need to remember is a big deal to Capcom, and that's Monster Hunter. Um, Monster Hunter Worlds on PlayStation and Xbox was a big deal, and is not a game that has appeared on Switch, and I don't know if it physically can run on that thing, but Monster Hunter is another big heavy hitter that we could possibly see something from.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really exciting about the Switch is that, we've seen a lot of games on it from third parties ported by companies like Virtuos.
Yeah.
That, like in the past, I'd be like, yeah, there's no way that would show up on a Nintendo platform. And then they put The Witcher 3 on Switch or Doom and Doom Eternal. And so I feel like what's exciting about like these listings is that really feel like the sky's the limit, and it could, like, the options are out there for it to be a big swing. I don't think we should set our hearts on that because I think, that a lot of these can be explained by like Lego games and another Rabbids game, which it would be great. And, another Resident Evil port from Capcom. But it's possible that it is something more. And I think that's exciting.
What? Okay, without looking it up, outside of current generation Resident Evil games, so no 2 remake, no 3 remake, and no 7, what Resident Evil games have not appeared on Switch?
Code Veronica.
Great answer. Let's get Code Veronica on Switch.
Animal Crossing's New Horizons is holding a wedding event in the month of June. From now until the end of the month, players can help a cute llama or alpaca couple, Cyrus and Reese, celebrate their love by taking pictures of them on Harv's Island.
I know that Harv's Island is a fun thing where you can take pictures using all of the furniture you've encountered and all of the neighbors you've encountered. But man, Harv just skeeves me out a little bit. I do not trust that dog. I don't like that he wants me to take pictures in his shack on an island that is uninhabited by anyone but him. But sure, let's celebrate the wedding of these two llamas.
Do you know what I like about this is that I think Cyrus and Reese are both very kind of like gender neutral names. And so I think it's appropriate for Pride Month that, like you can be celebrating Cyrus and Reese's wedding in whatever gender configurations tickle your fancy.
I love that. Canonically, I believe they're a straight couple.
Well, if canonically people were straight, then like half of internet fan fiction wouldn't exist. So
great point.
I don't really find it as a barrier.
Then we couldn't celebrate CJ and Flick, and you know I celebrate CJ and Flick. They're partners, Mark.
Also, in a recent update, previously when you used a Nook Miles ticket to go to a another deserted island to gather resources, anything that you gathered, like you had to have room in your inventory, and then you had to take it with you. Like you couldn't leave anything on the island. And that part doesn't change, but what has changed is Dodo Airlines is now offering a couple of new services. So they will ship things that you gather on the island back to your storage at home for free. And then they also have the option of, basically it works like the Dropbox at Nook's Cranny. So you can give some items to Wilbur while you're on the deserted island, and then you get marked down prices on them, and the bells show up in your bank account the next day.
All of which is super convenient, and it changes the game, I think, a little bit for like especially for early gameplay. And I understand most people are not experiencing the early game of this now, but like I remember going to a Nook Miles Island on like my first or second day and only having like the 2 rows of pocket space, and like after filling up my inventory with my tools to actually like harvest the island, having to like pick and choose what I wanted to take back with me. But this kind of does away with that decision making, and you can just sort of strip mine the island without having to like track anything.
A wonderful message.
Also, it is worth pointing out that since it is now June, that means it is summer. So there are a lot of little things that have changed on the island, including new fish and new bugs. There was a surfboard in my Nook's Cranny today that like sitting off to the side, like not in any of the regular like item purchasing spots. So it's been exciting to like run around and see some like not new necessarily, but stuff that wasn't part of the game in the spring. Even seeing like different fish shapes. So like Sarah was fishing, and there was like definitely a long fish that was like an eel of some kind, which got away. Didn't catch the eel. And then another fish that had a fin like a shark.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I assume that that's all just stuff that is part of, we are reaching this date, and not something that it was added with any update. But it is still worth, just pointing out that Animal Crossing has new content.
Patrick, did you see the pre-order bonus for that Best Buy is giving away for Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga?
I did not. Tell me about it.
This sounds like one of those horrible like podcast like scripted commercials where I'm going to tell you about my great experience using like Chow Down or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that at all.
What is Chow Down?
I don't know. Well, Patrick. I'm so glad you asked. Chow Down is a transformative. No. But no. What the pre-order bonus for Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga at Best Buy is it's like a really fun steelbook that looks like Han in carbon freeze.
It's really cute looking, and of course, it's not just Han and carbon frozen in carbonite, but it is Lego Han Solo frozen in
Right? Yeah.
carbonite.
Yeah. Of course.
So they instead of like his hands like pressed up against it, it's those little Lego claws, whatever they are. It seems super cute. I'm very excited for this game.
Yeah, we tend to talk about it a lot, which I don't know why, but yeah, this one has really captured my imagination in a way that most like Lego games, which I have played in the past and I think are fine. But it's been a while since I've been excited for one.
Yeah, and this is not a like repackaging of previous Lego games. It is like a from the ground up, built for now, and built for a post Episode 9 world, which like it makes me excited. If for nothing else, then like we get to see a peek, like a different peek at what Lego games could be.
Totally. Do you think that part of the reason why this game is coming out so long is that like Episode 9 was being edited up until like the very last minute, so they're like, well, we can't really build a game around this until the movie actually comes out?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. I wonder if they if there are like a bunch of levels or whatever that they had to like cut out because they're like, oh yeah, they end up not going there anymore.
Totally unrelated, but it was the 2-year anniversary of Solo, a Star Wars story, like last week. And so I was seeing like a lot of different podcasts. We've talked about it on the show before. I listen to Blast Points. It's a great podcast that I really love. And also Sky Talkers. And they both had episodes around Solo, and it made me go back and rewatch it. And I really liked it when it first came out. I just thought it was fun. And now it is exactly like the Star Wars that I kind of need. It's like a Star Wars to heal the soul a little bit.
Yeah.
So I went back and rewatched it on Netflix, and it's a movie that I appreciate more with time.
Yeah, I mean it is I think probably the only Star Wars movie that aspires to just be a popcorn flick, and delivers on that pretty well throughout. And like its only big crimes are answering questions that no one asked. But as long as like, I don't know, if you don't think about like this is the part where they name Han Solo, or this is the part where he gives Chewbacca a nickname as like meaningful parts of the movie and just as like something that happens in the movie, it's fine.
Yeah, I also think it really suffered from coming out so closely after The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi was like so much Star Wars.
Yeah,
that like it was the world was still reeling from The Last Jedi when Solo came out. Maybe that's what we should have talked about for 433.
Look, if we just go back and forth talking about The Simpsons and Star Wars in 433, I will never be unhappy again. I did see that on Twitter, Make Solo 2 Happen was trending for a little bit, which fine, but like let's make it a Calrissian movie, please.
Do you know what I really especially on this rewatch, what I appreciate so much is Kira. I think Kira is such a cool character, and I do think that it would be. I hope that in some form, whether it's novels or comics or as part of like the Cassian TV series or something like that, we get more of Kira and we get more of like the crime syndicates.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is. I am fine with Disney taking like a break with Star Wars and like we'll catch back up with it in a different era entirely, and have a different format and whatever. Like I'm happy for that, but like it would have been cool to have a trilogy based off of Solo, right? Solo, Calrissian, and Kira. Like if those were the movie, like that's cool. That'd have been cool. I want to see that.
It's a great cast, and I really think that like the first movie's production was obviously shaky, but it seems like the foundation for something really great was there. Back to Nintendo. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition finally has a release date after being announced alongside all the other Final Fantasy releases on Switch last year. I totally forgot about this. Square Enix announced last week that the game will be coming to the North American and European eShops on August 27th. Physical versions of the game are going to be available, but only in Japan.
And this one's exciting because Crystal Chronicles was one of those weirdo games that like was best played on a GameCube with a Game Boy Advance hooked up to it, and had like a cool multiplayer asynchronous kind of hook to it, and that is immediately and easily doable on the Switch. So yeah, I'm very excited for this thing to come out, and the Crystal Chronicles is not a game that I played in its original release because it's such a weirdo game, and because that sort of comes out in my video game blind spot. So yeah, it'll be cool for this thing to actually come out.
And finally, today, a sequel to the Sonic the Hedgehog movie that neither of us have seen has officially been announced. So, meow, Sonic the Hedgehog fans.
Yes. A reference to the infamous trailer where James Marsden discovers Sonic in a barn, and Sonic goes meow. Yes.
Yeah, that's
what
it.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
We are now putting this out there into the universe. It is our goal to have James Marsden or Jim Carrey, either one, or Ben Schwartz,
but not Ben Schwartz
on the show. Yeah, what's that?
Not Ben Schwartz.
No, I said Ben Schwartz. Ben Schwartz was the third one.
Oh, you did. Okay, gotcha.
If any of them want to come on Nintendo Cartridge Society, they just got to email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And then we'll have them right on to talk about, what they want to see in Pikmin 4. All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it wherever you share stuff. That would help us out tremendously. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by Apipetty. You can get more of his music by going to apipetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying Black Lives Matter, and thanks for listening.
My name is Will Hines, and I am a ghostwriter, meaning I write other people's books for them. And I have a podcast called I Will Write Your Book, which are recordings of my meetings with my eccentric clients, such as a woman blocked after one sentence of a children's book about her dogs, a romance novelist who dislikes sex, and a man proud of having sampled everything in his local grocery store. This podcast has been described as fully improvised, played by some of the best comedians on the planet Earth. Hey, that's pretty good. That's I Will Write Your Book on Campfire Media.
Campfire.